Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and looked at the empty space ahead. 3 months had passed since humanity's biggest space mission left Earth. They had traveled farther than any human had ever gone before. The mission was simple: find other life in the galaxy and make contact. But so far they had found nothing but silence. The ship was huge, almost a mile long, and carried 5,000 people. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and diplomats all worked together on this mission. Earth had spent 50 years building this ship and planning this journey. Everyone believed they would find aliens out here. Everyone was wrong. Jake walked to the main display screen. It showed 17 star systems they had visited. Each system had planets that should have supported life. Some planets had oceans, others had the right temperature, and many had oxygen in their air, but they were all empty. Not just empty of intelligent life, but empty of any life at all. Dr. Lisa Grant walked up to Jake. She was the head scientist for the mission and had been studying the dead worlds for weeks. Her face looked tired and confused. She carried a thick folder of reports. Double quotes, Captain, we need to talk, Lisa said. I've finished studying all the planets we've visited. Something is very wrong here. Jake turned away from the display. What did you find? Lisa opened her folder and pulled out several photographs. They showed massive cities with tall buildings and wide roads. The cities looked advanced with technology. That seemed better than what humans had on Earth, but they were completely empty. These cities were not abandoned slowly, Lisa explained. People did not pack up and leave over time. It looks like everyone just vanished in a single moment. Food is still on tables. Machines are still running. But there are no bodies, no signs of fighting, nothing. Jake looked at the photos more carefully. The cities were perfect. Too perfect. It was like looking at a movie set where all the actors had suddenly disappeared. How many worlds have you found like this? Jake asked. All of them, Lisa said. Every single planet that had intelligent life shows the same thing. Advanced civilizations that just stopped existing. Lieutenant Danny Walsh ran onto the bridge. He was young and usually calm, but now he looked scared. He had been monitoring space around their ship for any dangers. Captain, you need to see this. Right now, Danny said. We're picking up something massive in the Kepler 442 system. It's not a ship or a planet or anything we can identify. Jake followed Danny to the sensor station. The screen showed a three-dimensional map of the nearby star system. In the center was a large star with 8 planets orbiting around it. But there was something else there, something that didn't belong. What am I looking at? Jake asked as Danny pointed to a dark area near the 6th planet. That's the problem, sir. We can detect that something is there, but our sensors can't tell. You ask what it is. It's huge, maybe the size of a small moon, but it's not made of matter like we understand it. Lisa leaned over to look at the display. How is that possible? Watch this, Danny said. He played a recording from an hour earlier. The dark shape moved slowly toward the 6th planet, which was a gas giant with beautiful blue and green clouds. As they watched, the dark shape touched the planet and the planet began to disappear. Not explode or break apart, but simply vanish as if it had never existed. The 3 of them stood in silence for a long moment. Jake felt cold fear growing in his stomach. In 30 years of space travel, he had never seen anything like this. How long did it take? Jake asked. 14 minutes, Danny replied. An entire planet, gone in 14 minutes. Dr. Grant was already thinking like a scientist. We need to get closer. We need to study this thing. Absolutely not, Jake said quickly. We're staying far away from whatever that is. Captain, this might be the answer to why the galaxy is so quiet, Lisa argued. This thing might be responsible for all those empty worlds. Jake was about to respond when Communications Officer Emma Davis called out from across the bridge. Captain, I'm picking up a transmission. It's very weak and coming from the direction of that dark object. Everyone moved to Emma's station. She was Earth's best communications expert and could find signals that others missed. Her equipment covered an entire wall and blinked with hundreds of lights. What kind of transmission? Jake asked. Emma adjusted her equipment and played the signal through the bridge speakers. At first, it sounded like random noise. But then patterns began to emerge. It sounded almost like a language, but not quite. It's definitely artificial, Emma said. Someone or something is sending this signal. But it's not like any communication system I've ever heard. Lisa listened carefully to the strange sounds. Can you clean it up? Make it clearer? Emma worked on her equipment for several minutes. Slowly, the signal became clearer. It was definitely a language, but the words were long and complex. The voice sounded sad and urgent. I think I can translate some of this, Emma said. The computer is finding patterns that match languages in our database. After 20 minutes of work, Emma had translated part of the message. She put the translation on the main screen for everyone to read. Warning to all who can hear this signal. The darkness comes, it consumes all. We are the last of the Zephyrians. Our world ends now. Beware the Void Walker. It knows you are coming. The bridge became very quiet. Jake read the message 3 times before he fully understood what it meant. This message is live? He asked. Yes, sir, Emma replied. Someone is sending this right now. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Set course for the Kepler 442 system, but keep us at maximum safe distance. Sir, are you sure about this? Danny asked. No, Jake replied honestly. But we came out here to find answers. We might have just found the biggest question in the galaxy. As the Defiance changed course toward the mysterious signal, Jake wondered if they were making a huge mistake. They had been looking for other intelligent life in the galaxy. Now it seemed like they had found something that was destroying all intelligent life in the galaxy. The ship's engines hummed as they accelerated toward the unknown. Behind them, Earth was just a tiny point of light. Ahead of them was something that could destroy entire planets. But they were humanity's only hope of understanding what was happening to the galaxy. Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. Humans had always been curious, even when curiosity was dangerous. That curiosity had taken them to the stars. Now it might lead them to something that could end all human life, but they had to know the truth. Whatever was out there in the darkness, whatever was making the galaxy silent, they had to face it. Because if they didn't, humanity might be next to vanish without a trace. The journey to Kepler 442 would take 2 days. 2 days to prepare for whatever they might find. 2 days before they came face to face with the darkness that had a name. 2 days later, the Defiance arrived at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the sensors carefully. The dark object was still there, but now it had moved closer to the system's star. Report? Jake ordered. Lieutenant Danny Walsh checked his instruments. The object has consumed 2 more planets since we detected it. The 3rd and 7th planets are completely gone. No debris, no trace they ever existed. Dr. Lisa Grant was studying the readings with her team of scientists. Captain, we're detecting some kind of energy field around the object. It's unlike anything in our physics books, Jake nodded grimly. Whatever this thing was, it was beyond human understanding. But they had come this far, and Earth needed answers. Sir, Communications Officer Emma Davis called out. I'm detecting another signal, but this one is different. It's coming from somewhere else in the system? Emma worked on her equipment for several minutes. The signal is coming from an artificial structure orbiting the system's star. It appears to be a space station. Jake looked at the main display as the sensors focused on the new contact. The structure was enormous, at least 50 miles across, and clearly built by intelligent beings, but it was not human. Is it active? Jake asked. Yes, sir, Danny replied. It's generating power and appears to have life support systems running. Lisa studied the readings. The design is completely alien. Whoever built this used technology we don't understand. Jake made another difficult decision: prepare a boarding party. I want to know what's on that station. Commander Alex Stone stepped forward. He was the ship's military leader and had experience with dangerous missions. Sir, I'll take a team aboard. But we should be very careful. Agreed, Jake said. Take Dr. Grant and Emma with you. We need scientific analysis and communications. Support. An hour later, Alex led his team through the docking bay of the alien station. The corridors were huge, clearly built for beings much larger than humans. The walls were made of a strange metal that seemed to glow with its own light. The atmosphere is breathable, Lisa reported through her suit radio. Oxygen levels are actually higher than what we're used to on Earth. Emma was scanning for any electronic signals. I'm detecting massive computer systems throughout the station. Whoever built this had very advanced technology. They walked through the empty corridors for 20 minutes before finding what appeared to be a control room. The chamber was filled with displays and control panels, all still active despite the station being abandoned. Look at this, Emma said, approaching one of the control panels. Somehow, the alien technology seemed to recognize her presence and began displaying information in a way she could understand. How is that possible? Alex asked. I don't know, Emma replied, but I think the computer is trying to communicate with us. Lisa was examining other displays around the room. Alex, you need to see this. These screens are showing images of that dark object we've been tracking. The displays showed the object from different angles and distances. But more importantly, they showed what happened when it approached planets. The images were disturbing. Entire worlds simply dissolved as the dark shape passed over them. Emma, can you access their database? Alex asked. Emma worked on the alien interface for several minutes. I think so. The computer seems designed to share information with other species. Gradually, Emma was able to access the station's records. What she found changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Commander, this station has been here for over 50,000 years, Emma reported. It was built by a species called the Kepler Watchers. They've been studying that dark object the entire time. Lisa was reading other parts of the database. According to this, the object isn't alone. There are many of them spread throughout the galaxy. They call them void walkers. Alex felt his blood run cold. How many? Hundreds, Lisa replied. Maybe thousands. And they're all doing the same thing. Moving from system to system, consuming entire worlds. Emma had found more disturbing information. Commander, the Kepler Watchers weren't the first to study these things. This database contains records from dozens of different species, all documenting encounters with the Void Walkers. The records painted a terrifying picture. For millions of years, the Void Walkers have been moving through the galaxy like a slow plague. They consumed not just planets but entire civilizations. Advanced species that had ruled multiple star systems were reduced to nothing in a matter of decades. There's something else, her voice shaking. Every species that encountered the Void Walkers discovered the same thing. The Void Walkers aren't just mindless destroyers. They're working for something else. Alex leaned over to read the display. Working for what? Something the records call the Endless Hunger, Emma replied. The Void Walkers are just scouts. They're preparing the galaxy for something much worse. Lisa had found technical specifications for the Void Walkers. They're not made of normal matter. They exist partially in our dimension and partially in something else. That's why our sensors have trouble detecting them. But how do they destroy planets so completely? Alex asked. They don't destroy them, Lisa explained. They convert them. The matter and energy of entire worlds gets transformed into something else and sent somewhere else. Emma was still working through the database when she found something that made her gasp. Commander, there's a section of this database that's specifically about humans. That's impossible, Alex said. Humans have never been in this part of the galaxy before? Emma checked the records twice before reporting what she found. According to this, humans were detected in this galaxy over 12,000 years ago. The Kepler Watchers have been watching us almost as long as they've been watching the Void Walkers. The implications hit all three of them at once. If humans had been in this part of the galaxy 12,000 years ago, it meant that either human history was wrong or someone had been keeping secrets from Earth. There's more, Emma continued. The database says humans have an unusual resistance to whatever process the Void Walkers use to consume matter. Other species are converted quickly, but humans take much longer. Lisa was thinking like a scientist. Again, that might explain why the Void Walkers haven't approached Earth yet. If humans are resistant to their conversion process, we might represent a threat to them. Alex made a decision. We need to download as much of this database as possible and get back to the ship. Captain Morrison needs to see all of this. As they prepared to leave the alien station, Emma found one more piece of information that changed everything. Hidden in the deepest parts of the database was a message written in perfect English. To the humans who will eventually find this station, the message began. We are your brothers and sisters from Earth, sent on a secret mission that your government does not know about. We have been fighting the endless hunger for 60 years. If you are reading this, it means they have begun their final approach toward Earth. The message continued with coordinates to a hidden base and detailed information about humanity's real enemy. The Void Walkers were not the main threat. They were just the beginning. The galaxy's darkness has a name, the message concluded. They call themselves the Architects of Silence. They have been coming for Earth since the day humanity first looked at the stars. Find us at the coordinates provided. Together we might have a chance to stop them. Alex, Lisa, and Emma returned to the Defiance with the most important information in human history. They had found the answer to why the galaxy was silent. But the answer was worse than anyone had imagined. The darkness did have a name, and it was coming for Earth. Back aboard the Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison called an emergency meeting of all senior officers. The information that Alex, Lisa, and Emma had brought back from the alien station was too important to keep secret from the crew. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake began, what we've discovered changes everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the universe. Dr. Lisa Grant stood up to present her findings. The alien database contains detailed records of human activity in this galaxy dating back 12,000 years. This means humans have been traveling in deep space far longer than our official history suggests. Commander Alex Stone added, more importantly, we found evidence that other humans are already out here, fighting an enemy that threatens all life in the galaxy. Communications Officer Emma Davis activated the main display screen. The coordinates from the hidden message point to a system about 3 days from our current location. Long-range sensors show artificial structures there, but they're heavily shielded. Jake looked around the room at his officers. They were scared, but they were also determined. We're going to follow those coordinates. But first, I want everyone to understand what we're dealing with. Lisa explained what they had learned about the Void Walkers and the Architects of Silence. The enemy was not just advanced aliens with superior technology. They were beings that existed partly outside normal space and time, consuming entire civilizations to feed something even more horrible. The good news, Lisa continued, is that humans appear to have natural resistance to their consumption process. The bad news is that this resistance makes us a threat to them, which means they'll try to destroy us rather than convert us. Engineer Nicole White had been studying the technical data from the alien station. Captain, I've been analyzing how the Void Walkers operate. They use some kind of dimensional manipulation to break down matter at the quantum level. But according to the alien records, human consciousness interferes with this process. What does that mean exactly? Jake asked. It means that human minds are structured differently from other species, Nicole explained. When the Void Walkers try to convert us, our consciousness fights back in ways they don't expect. Lieutenant Danny Walsh had been monitoring space around their ship during the meeting. Captain, I'm detecting several ships approaching our position. They're using technology similar to ours, but more advanced. Jake felt his heart rate increase. Hostile? No, sir, Danny replied. They're transmitting human identification codes. Old codes that haven't been used by Earth forces in decades. 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the Defiance's main docking bay as 3 ships connected to his vessel. The ships were clearly human in design, but they looked like they had been modified with alien technology. The first person to step off the lead ship was a woman in a military uniform that Jake didn't recognize. She was middle-aged with gray hair and scars on her face that suggested years of combat experience. "Captain Morrison," the woman said, extending her hand. "I'm Commander Rachel Bennett of the Human Deep Space Defense Force. We've been waiting for you." Jake shook her hand, confused. "I've never heard of the Human Deep Space Defense Force." "That's because officially we don't exist," Rachel replied. "We represent 12 expeditions that were sent out secretly over the past 70 years. Expeditions that Earth believes were lost to accidents or equipment failures." Rachel led Jake and his officers through the corridors of her ship. The technology was amazing. Weapon systems that could destroy entire ships, shields that could deflect energy beams, and computers that seemed to think faster than humans. "How long have you been out here?" Jake asked. "I've been fighting this war for 35 years, Rachel replied. "My father was part of the second expedition in 2167. He died fighting the Void Walkers near the Centauri system. They arrived at a conference room where other humans were waiting. Some wore military uniforms, others looked like scientists, and a few appeared to be diplomats. But they all had the same hard look in their eyes that came from years of fighting an impossible." NameHFY Dr. Steve Parker stood up to greet the newcomers. He was the chief scientist for the Hidden Human Force. "Captain Morrison, we've been tracking your mission since you left Earth. We hoped you would discover the truth and find your way to us." Jake sat down at the conference table. "What truth?" Steve activated a holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of Voidwalker sightings, and there were hundreds of them. "The truth is that humanity has been at war with the Architects of Silence for longer than Earth knows," Steve explained. "The first secret expedition discovered them in 2157. Since then, we've been fighting a hidden war to protect Earth and find a way to stop them." Lisa leaned forward. "Why keep it secret? Why not warn Earth?" Rachel answered that question. "Because panic would have destroyed human civilization before the architects ever reached Earth. Instead, we've been using Earth's resources to build weapons and gather intelligence. Every major scientific breakthrough on Earth in the past 50 years has been guided by us," Steve added. "Faster than light travel, advanced computers, energy weapons. We've been preparing humanity for this war without them knowing it." Jake was starting to understand the massive scope of what he was learning. "How many humans are out here?" "About 15,000, Rachel replied. "Spread across 20 hidden bases throughout the galaxy. We've been building an army while studying." "Our enemy?" Engineer Ben Carter, who had come aboard with Rachel's group, showed them a different kind of display. This one showed the structure of the Architects of Silence themselves. "They're not just aliens," Ben explained. "They're the collective consciousness of every species they've ever consumed. Imagine the combined knowledge and experience of thousands of civilizations, all working together to consume more life." "But they have a weakness," Steve added. "Human consciousness is structured in a way that makes us toxic to their collective mind. When they try to absorb us, we don't just resist. We poison their entire system." Lisa was fascinated by the scientific implications. "So humans are like a virus to them?" "Exactly," Steve confirmed. "But they've learned to avoid us. That's why. They haven't approached Earth directly. They know that absorbing human consciousness would damage them." Jake was thinking strategically. "If we're toxic to them, why don't we just let them try to absorb us?" Rachel's expression became grim. "Because they've found another solution. Instead of trying to absorb humanity, they're coming to destroy us completely. Our long-range sensors show a massive force heading toward Earth. Not void walkers, but something much worse." The holographic display changed to show long-range sensor readings. A fleet of ships larger than anything humans had ever built was moving slowly through the galaxy toward Earth, but these weren't normal ships. They were constructs made from the matter of consumed worlds, powered by the consciousness of extinct civilizations. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. 6 months, Rachel replied. Maybe 7 if we're lucky. Steve stood up and walked to the display, but we have a plan. It's risky and requires the cooperation of every human in the galaxy, but it might work. What kind of plan? Jake asked. We're going to turn Earth itself into a weapon, Steve explained. Using a network of devices we've been secretly placing around the planet, we can amplify human consciousness to a degree that would be lethal to the architects. Ben added more details. When the architects arrive at Earth, instead of finding a world to destroy, they'll encounter a coordinated psychic assault from 7 billion human minds. Rachel concluded the explanation. We've been preparing for this battle for 70 years. But we need the Defiance and her crew to help coordinate. The Defense, are you willing to fight for humanity's survival? Jake looked around at his officers. They were overwhelmed by what they had learned, but he could see determination in their eyes. They had come out here looking for other life in the galaxy. Instead, they had found humanity's greatest challenge. What do you need us to do? Jake asked. Help us wake up Earth, Rachel replied. It's time for humanity to know the truth about what's coming. Captain Jake Morrison found himself aboard the hidden base called Haven Station 3 days later. The journey had given him time to think about everything he had learned, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw when they arrived. Haven Station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid that was 10 miles across. The base was home to 3,000 humans, all working together to fight an enemy that most of Earth didn't know existed. The technology inside the base was 50 years ahead of anything Jake had ever seen. Commander Rachel Bennett led Jake through the main corridors of the base. Engineers worked on weapons that could destroy entire ships. Scientists studied captured Voidwalker technology. Soldiers trained with equipment that seemed to come from science fiction movies. This is incredible, Jake said as they walked past a laboratory where humans were working with alien computers. How did you build all of this without Earth knowing? Very carefully, Rachel replied. We'd been using resources from abandoned alien worlds and trading with the few species that have survived the architect attacks. It's taken 70 years, but we've built a fleet that can fight them. They arrived at the base's command center, which was the size of a football field. Hundreds of displays showed information from across the galaxy. Jake could see the positions of human ships, Voidwalker movements, and the slow approach of the Architect fleet toward Earth. Dr. Steve Parker was waiting for them at the central command station. Captain Morrison, I want to show you something that will help you understand what we're really fighting. Steve activated a 3-dimensional display that showed a detailed image of one of the architects. The creature was massive, easily the size of a small city, and appeared to be made of living darkness with points of light moving through it like stars. Each architect is the combined consciousness of about 1 million absorbed beings, Steve explained. They don't just take the physical matter of the species they consume. They take their memories, their knowledge, their entire sense of self. Jake studied the image carefully. The creature was beautiful in a terrifying way, like looking at a living galaxy. How many architects are coming to Earth? Our best count is 300, Rachel replied, along with about 2,000 Voidwalkers and support ships built from the remains of consumed worlds. The numbers were overwhelming. Jake had commanded the largest ship humanity had ever built, but even 1,000 ships like the Defiance would be nothing against a force that size. How can we possibly fight something like that? Jake asked. Dr. Lisa Grant, who had been studying the base's technology, approached the command station. Steve has been showing me their research on human consciousness. Jake, what we learned about humans being toxic to the architects is only part of the story. Steve nodded and changed the display to show brain scans. Every human brain generates a unique pattern of neural activity. When the architects try to absorb human consciousness, these patterns act like a computer virus in their collective mind. But that's not the most important part, Lisa continued. When human minds work together, focused on the same goal, the effect is multiplied exponentially. Jake was beginning to understand. You're talking about using every human mind on Earth as a weapon. Exactly, Steve confirmed. We've spent the past 20 years secretly installing amplification devices around Earth. When activated, these devices can broadcast human thought patterns across interstellar distances. Rachel brought up another display showing Earth with thousands of small dots around it. Each dot represents one of our amplification stations. They're hidden underground, in the ocean, and in orbit around the planet. The plan is to wait until the architects arrive at Earth, Steve explained. When they enter the solar system, we'll activate all the amplifiers and coordinate a psychic attack from every human mind on the planet. Jake looked at the battle plans with growing concern. What happens to the humans involved in this attack? Steve and Rachel exchanged a look that told Jake the answer wouldn't be good. We don't know, Steve admitted. This has never been attempted before. The psychic feedback could be devastating to human minds. Or it could change us permanently, Rachel added. But if we don't try, humanity will be extinct in 6 months. Communications Officer Emma Davis had been working with the base's communication systems. Captain, I've been analyzing the intelligence reports from our deep space scouts. The architect. Fleet is moving faster than expected. Jake felt his stomach drop. How much faster? They'll reach Earth in 4 months, not 6, Emma reported. The command center became very quiet. 4 months was not enough time to properly prepare Earth's population for what was coming. Rachel made a decision. We need to send a message to Earth immediately. The government needs to know what's coming. What about the panic? Jake asked. You said that was why you kept this secret. Panic is better than extinction, Rachel replied grimly. Engineer Nicole White had been studying the base's defensive systems. Captain, there's something else you need to know. This isn't the only hidden base. There are 19 others spread throughout the galaxy, each with their own specialty. Steve confirmed this. Base 7 specializes in ship construction. Base 12 focuses on weapons development. Base 15 studies architect psychology. We've been coordinating a galaxy-wide resistance for decades. Jake was amazed by the scope of the operation. How many ships do we have total? About 800 combat vessels, Rachel replied, plus support ships and mobile bases. It's the largest fleet humanity has ever assembled, but it's still not enough to fight the architects directly. That's why the psychic attack is our only real option, Steve added. If we can damage their collective consciousness, their ships will be vulnerable to conventional weapons. Dr. Grant had been thinking about the scientific implications. Steve, what happens to the consciousness of all the species the architects have absorbed? If we damage their collective mind, what happens to those absorbed beings? Steve paused before answering. We think they might be freed. If our attack works, we could potentially restore millions of extinct species to some form of existence. The possibility was staggering. Not only could humanity save itself, but it might be able to undo millions of years of genocide committed by the architects. Jake made his decision. What do you need the Defiance to do? Rachel smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. We need you to return to Earth and convince the government to prepare the population for the psychic attack. People need to understand what's coming and how to focus their minds when the time comes. Meanwhile, Steve added, we'll continue preparing our fleet for the conventional battle that will follow the psychic attack. If our plan works, the architects will be vulnerable for a short time. We need to be ready to destroy them while they're weakened. Emma had been monitoring communications from the other hidden bases. Captain, I'm receiving reports from bases throughout the galaxy. Everyone is moving to their assigned positions for the final battle. Jake looked around the command center at the humans who had been fighting this war in secret for decades. They had sacrificed everything to protect Earth, and now it was time for Earth to fight back. How long before we can return to Earth? Jake asked. 2 days, Rachel replied. But Captain, there's one more thing you need to know. Once we activate the psychic attack, there's no going back. Humanity will never be the same again. Jake nodded grimly. Then we better make sure we win. 3 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the main command center of Earth Defense Headquarters. The past 12 weeks had been the most difficult in human history. The revelation that hostile aliens were approaching Earth had caused panic, riots, and near total breakdown of society before people finally accepted the truth. President Kate Sullivan had declared a global emergency and placed all of Earth's resources under military control. 7 billion people were now working together for the first time in human history, united by the knowledge that their species faced complete extinction. Status report, Jake ordered. Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her scientific workstation. All amplification stations are online and ready. We've run successful tests with small groups of volunteers. The psychic coordination system works, but the strain on human minds is significant. Commander Alex Stone reported on military preparations. Earth's defense fleet is in position around the solar system. We have 200 ships ready for conventional combat after the psychic attack weakens the architects. Communications officer Emma Davis was monitoring the approach of the enemy fleet. The architect force has entered the outer solar system. They'll reach Earth in 6 hours. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. In 6 hours, humanity would either save itself or die trying. There was no middle ground. Commander Rachel Bennett had arrived from Haven Station 2 weeks earlier to help coordinate the defense. She approached Jake with the final battle plans. Captain, our deep space scouts report that the architects have stopped their advance at the edge of the solar system, Rachel said. They're studying Earth before making their final approach. Why? Would they hesitate? Jake asked. Dr. Steve Parker, who had also come to Earth to help with the defense, had an answer. They can sense the psychic energy building up around Earth. They know something is different, but they can't understand what we're planning. The main display screen showed the positions of architect ships throughout the solar system. 300. Massive vessels, each one capable of destroying entire planets, were arranged in perfect formation. Behind them were 2,000 smaller ships that contained the Void Walkers. It's the largest force they've ever assembled, Rachel observed. They're not taking any chances with humanity? Jake looked around the command center at the people who would coordinate humanity's defense. Military officers, scientists, engineers, and communications specialists all worked together with one goal: survival. Dr. Grant, are the volunteers ready? Jake asked. Lisa nodded. We have 100,000 people stationed at amplification sites around the world. They've been trained to focus their consciousness on the architect fleet when we give the signal. What about the general population? Everyone else has been instructed to concentrate on thoughts of resistance and defiance when the attack begins, Lisa replied. Even untrained minds will contribute to the overall effect. Engineer Nicole White was monitoring the amplification network. All systems are operating at full capacity. When we activate the network, the psychic energy from Earth will be detectable anywhere in the galaxy. Jake made the most important decision in human history. Signal all stations. Begin the final countdown. In 1 hour, we fight for the survival of our species. As the countdown began, Jake thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. The search for other life in the galaxy had led them to discover that they were not just another species. They were something unique, something that could fight back against an enemy that had consumed entire civilizations. 30 minutes to activation. Emma announced. Dr. Parker was making final adjustments to the psychic coordination system. Captain, I need to warn you about what might happen when we activate the amplifiers. The feedback could change human consciousness permanently. Change? It how? Jake asked. We might gain access to the memories of every species the architects have absorbed, Steve explained. 7 billion human minds connecting with the consciousness of millions of extinct civilizations. We don't know what that will do to us. Jake looked out the command center window at the Earth below. Cities were dark as people conserved energy for the coming battle, but he could feel the determination of 7 billion humans preparing to fight for their world. 10 minutes to activation, Emma called out. Rachel was coordinating with the hidden fleet throughout the galaxy. All human. Ships are in position. If the psychic attack works, we'll have about 30 minutes to destroy the weakened architects before they recover. 5 minutes to activation. Jake could feel tension building throughout the command center. Everyone knew that the next few minutes would determine the future of humanity. 1 minute to activation. Dr. Grant was monitoring the psychic energy levels around Earth. Jake, the amplifier network is generating more power than we calculated. The combined focus of 7 billion minds is incredible. 30 seconds. Jake opened a communication channel to every human on Earth and throughout the galaxy. This is Captain Morrison to all humanity. In 30 seconds, we begin the most important battle in our history. Focus your minds on resistance. Focus on survival. Focus on victory. 10 seconds, Emma announced. Jake watched the countdown timer reach 0. Activate all amplifiers. Begin the psychic attack. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Every amplification station on Earth activated simultaneously, broadcasting the focused thoughts of 7 billion human minds across interstellar space. The psychic energy was so intense that it could be detected by sensors throughout the solar system. The Architect fleet reacted instantly. Their perfect formation broke apart as the massive ships began to drift aimlessly through space. The collective consciousness that controlled them was being poisoned by human thought patterns. "It's working!" Lisa shouted. "The architects are losing coordination." But the effect on humans was just as dramatic. Jake could suddenly feel the presence of other minds. Not just humans, but the consciousness of extinct alien species that had been absorbed by the architects. Memories that weren't his own flooded his awareness. "All human ships, attack now," Rachel ordered. "The architects are vulnerable." The hidden human fleet emerged from concealment throughout the solar system. 800 ships armed with weapons. Beyond anything Earth had possessed a year earlier, opened fire on the helpless Architect vessels. The battle was unlike anything in human history. Massive alien ships that had seemed invincible were destroyed by weapons powered by human determination. Void walkers that could consume planets were torn apart by energy beams, guided by human precision, but the psychic attack was changing humanity in ways no one had anticipated. Jake could feel his consciousness expanding, connecting not just with other humans, but with the memories of thousands of extinct species. He could see their worlds, understand their cultures, feel their hopes and dreams. "Jake," Lisa called out, her voice filled with wonder. "I can remember things that happened on worlds that were destroyed millions of years ago. The psychic connection is giving us access to the collective knowledge of the galaxy." The battle continued for 6 hours. When it was over, every architect ship had been destroyed. The threat that had consumed civilizations for millions of years was finally ended, but humanity had paid a price for victory. Every human mind now carried the memories of extinct species. The collective knowledge of the galaxy was stored in 7 billion human brains. Admiral Kate Sullivan, who had commanded the defense from Earth, contacted Jake from the Planetary Command Center. "Captain Morrison, preliminary reports indicate total victory. The Architect fleet has been completely destroyed." Jake nodded, but he was still processing the changes he could feel in his own mind. "Admiral, we need to discuss what's happened. To humanity, we're not the same species we were this morning." "I know," Kate replied. "I can feel it too. The memories, the knowledge, we've become something more than human." Dr. Grant was studying the readings from the psychic attack. "Jake, the amplifier network picked up signals from all over the galaxy. Species that have been hiding from the architects for centuries are starting to send out communications. We freed the galaxy." In the days that followed, humanity began to understand what they had become. They were still human, but they now carried within them the collective memory of galactic civilization. Every extinct species lived on in human consciousness. Ships began arriving from distant worlds. Species that had thought themselves alone in the universe discovered that humanity had not only defeated the architects but had preserved the memory of every civilization they had consumed. Jake stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking out at Earth surrounded by ships from dozens of different worlds. Humanity had gone looking for other life in the galaxy and had found something far more important: the responsibility to rebuild a galaxy that had been held in terror for millions. of years, the darkness had a name and humanity had destroyed it. But in doing so, they had inherited the memories of everyone the darkness had consumed. They were no longer just human. They were the guardians of galactic civilization, carrying within them the hopes and dreams of millions of extinct species. The galaxy was no longer silent, and humanity would make sure it never would be again.